cooler, but I understand it's going to get hotter. Public comments. This time the public is permitted to address the committee. Is there anyone wishing to address? Okay. Approval of minutes. Item C. First.
Second.
Second. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent calendar. But before we go, I have a request to pull for a later date, 6.3. That will come back to us at a future. And then Newell is requested to pull item 7. So I would entertain a motion for the remaining. Move the remainder first.
Second.
Second. Had me going there. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Give Newell a chance.
Newell, you're up.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to pull 7 and sort of to talk about two aspects. One, I think the board has had numerous conversations with our executive director about looking for new consultants. And we had made a clear direction. We got part of that, but I still see our consultant who is on this. And I think this report, in my view, and a perspective of representing the cities and taxpayers, that this report may well have a different message if it was done by an independent agency that was not involved in our previous transactions. And the idea is to try to get new consultants with new ideas. And I think this is the opportunity where I think the board should recommend that we, in fact, get a new consultant, just like we have in a variety of areas. I disagree in a lot of ways with the conclusion of the report regarding the SWOT. And this isn't a bias. This is a fact. It's not a true and accurate analysis of the total real cost. And when it it sort of has a self-preservation kind of view to it. I don't think in the world that we live in today, the transparency that we need to demonstrate, and with our high credit rating, that getting truly a new face and a new value of giving us an accurate viewpoint from a perspective and not having been involved in a swap would serve us better, and I think it would serve our public better. And for example, when you do an analysis and said, okay, here's the cost, it is not performing. We know that. It has a very high interest rate to the rates. And then to say, well, we got to hold X million dollars, $43 million back in reserve against this, but we're making interest rate on it. Well, we're getting pennies on the dollars for that. The lost opportunity cost is not analyzed. And the lost opportunity is you borrow $200 million and you put 21% away. So you really are paying interest on money that you only get to use 80% of. And the whole idea of forming this agency, this is counter to it because of the way it turned out. I think we just need to move forward and, again, use this as an opportunity to get some fresh blood in here, some people with a different idea, and somebody who can come in who doesn't see the history of us and gives us, I think, a viewpoint. They may come to the same conclusion, but I think we owe it to ourselves to get it. It is the only thing that we have left in our portfolio that doesn't perform the way we originally thought it would. But again, I would recommend, and the reason for pulling this is twofold. One is that we consider for the future is to go out and solicit somebody to advise us on future bonding. Go out and get lots in. We were looking at Alamo Capital. We're looking at other places, local companies, that I think have served us well on our recent issues. And the only purpose of this is for somebody to go back and say, hey, I think I could redo your financing on something, and you might save money. And there's value to that, clearly value to that. And we've used that opportunity before. But I really think this board, our recommendation should be, just as we've done the others, this is an opportunity for somebody who served us well over the years to move on to the marketplace and get a different perspective, and somebody who will have legs in this agency that will last longer and I think serve the best interest. So my recommendation on, I would move this item, but I would move it with a recommendation that through our executive directors, that we recommend that we go out and seek new proposals to get a fresh look at how we manage our bonds.
I'll second that for purposes of discussion.
Sure.
Randy, perhaps you can remind us when the contract is up?
Yeah, I'd have to look at that, Commissioner Pierce. I believe it's another 18 months with the contract with PFM. And, this is just an informational report that provides, the status of the authority's debt portfolio. It's, meant to provide staff and the board with an update where we are on our debt and the financial factors related to our interest rate swap.
Okay, well, I have to say, I don't always agree with Newell, but in this case, I think fresh eyes could be helpful, but we are in the middle of a contract. So maybe we have to look at and ask you as staff to come back to us with some recommendations on how we can freshen the perspective that we are getting. Because this seems to take as just fine. Yes, and historically, the interest rates were much higher than they are right now. We understand that. We understand that when we did the swap, it looked like a pretty decent rate compared to what else was going on. Compared to today's rates, it doesn't look so great. But I think some new energy might be helpful, or at least ask our current folks to take a fresh perspective, at the very least.
For my own perspective, Randy, this is just information. So this would have to come back to us as an agenda item and a motion or a different direction, but that's going to be in the future, like 18 months. So I'm not quite sure. We just accept this is what we're doing at this point, correct?
It's
Just
just
for
an
the record, I
informational
want to make
report.
sure. But you're going to second. So we've got his recommendation.
No, he said accept it with a recommendation.
Accept it.
Yeah, what I'm
That's
suggesting
where
is we
I'm
accept
trying
it
to-
with a recommendation. Should we have some contractual obligations?
Okay.
We honor those in whatever the most appropriate professional way. But if there's an exit, an option to get out, I think we should begin to solicit those, and that's my point.
So what exactly is the recommendation, Newell? Because I think your original recommendation was probably stronger than the one you might make now, given the fact that we now know we have an 18-month
So let me,
time frame involved.
I will clarify this. I would recommend we accept this report with a recommendation to direct staff to seek new proposals from other outside firms, honoring the contract that we have, and if there's an out clause, I would suggest we look at optioning that based on getting other proposals from different firms.
All right, and I will second that, but I want to offer a friendly amendment, which is to make clear that nothing in this recommendation precludes staff or anyone from soliciting PFM if they wish to make a new proposal.
Well, and certainly challenging them to come up with creative ideas.
Those two things sit side by side. That's the nature of asking for proposals. Okay, all right.
Okay, we extended that pretty good, so hopefully you've got it. Really, okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, there we go. Regular agenda items, 10-0, legislative update.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's good to be back, apparently. It's been a very busy summer. So before Mark Watts jumps into the state update, I just wanted to point out a few items in your federal update of interest. If any of you have been in a meeting in Washington, D.C. with our executive director, you know that he is relentless about regulation reform. And as you'll notice in our federal update, it looks like that idea is starting to get a little legs in terms of streamlining project delivery and helping to put federal money in the ground faster. So I'm going to say that's because Randy talks about it relentlessly every time that he goes. There may be some other mitigating factors in there, but I think that's good news for our agency if these proposals continue to move forward, because it just means we get to deliver our projects faster and more efficiently to the public. Also of note on the federal side, two of our local elected officials, Representative Desaulnier and Representative Pelosi, have been pushing very hard to include a $100 million grant program for autonomous vehicles in the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Bill. So that is working its way through. That would set up CCTA and Momentum Station both in a very good position to obtain quite a bit of grant funding to continue testing and looking at mobility solutions for the future. So we're watching that fairly carefully, and it looks like you want to comment on that as well, so feel free.
Yeah, we worked very hard to get this language in an omnibus bill, and Jack is going to refer to the THUD Act in his last slide today. But Congressman Desaulnier, from his position as a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee on the House side, was very diligent about getting this language in. And it's written in such a way that you have to be one of the 10 designated test beds in the United States. But more importantly, you have to be testing freight. And so we're one of the few test beds in the United States that actually have trucks running. And so that's kind of the language that the congressman, and then Congressman McNerney and Swalwell also signed on as supporters, as well as the Leader Pelosi. So that's a pretty powerful group of the members of Congress for us. So I just want to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's my kind of brief federal update. I'm happy to try to answer any questions anybody has before we move on to the state update. Or if there aren't any, I'm happy to turn it over to Mark Watts. Okay, seeing none, take it away, Mark.
Thank you and welcome back. Now I've got 3 people I can bug on a daily basis instead of just 2. So I'm very happy about that development. A couple quick things to report to you. First, I'll just give you kind of a status report on RM3 because I understand the executive director is going to cover it a little bit more later in the presentation. RM3 SB 595 was in Appropriations Committee up till last week. It was on suspense. It moved out, and part of that movement was a series of amendments that were technical in nature. Those finally came out in print yesterday. The delay between the reporting out and having the amendments show up in print has delayed the ability for Legislative Council to actually produce the next set of amendments, which are going to be very important to this particular county because we are told they will hold a number of more important elements that we've been asking for, and I'd just like to give a tip of the hat to your executive staff as well as Commissioners Worth and Pierce for all their diligent work last week and the week before that will lead to, I believe, these important amendments that will add a significant amount of funding to the county's guaranteed pot within or pots within RM3. And it's spread across. There's funding going to be available in West County, Central County, and East County. So it's, I think it's very, very beneficial. One of the issues that this board has been pushing for was an inspector general, and that's been a 3 or 4 or 5-way conversation between the author's office, delegation members, and your representatives when they've been in Sacramento. I was told yesterday, but not shown, the exact language that the author, Senator Bell, and the Senate delegation member Glazier have reached a meeting of the minds on what the Inspector General language would look like. I haven't seen it, and they wouldn't tell me about it until it was fully confirmed last night. But I've got great hopes that it's going to meet your needs as well as we move forward. So that is in addition to the funding.
So that would be my update on, well, I'll conclude with this, on RM3. The bill is sitting on the Assembly floor, waiting for this last set of amendments. Tomorrow's the last day to amend. We should be able to see the language later today, and we can affirm what we've been told is going to go into the bill. And I think you'd be able to move forward in a good position. And if I'm sounding a little arch and protective, it's because I just don't know exactly. I know what we've been told. I have not seen the language, so I don't want to commit to what I've not seen at this point in time. Moving on, I know there's been a lot of interest, particularly at the city, local government levels, over the recent Supreme Court holding on the cannabis lawsuit with the city of Upland, where it indicates that that the electorate, through the initiative process, is nowhere defined in the Constitution as part of the local government that is subject to Article 13C. As a consequence, it has apparently opened the door to potential taxation measures through the initiative process that would require only a majority vote, because the restriction on special taxes in Article 13C is limited, looking back sounds kind of funny to say it that way, limited to local governments and not the electorate. There's a lot of question marks about what this means. The most interesting thing I found reading the opinion when it came out was there had been a cross-reference to a prior similar holding, but nobody really caught on to that at that point in time. It may not have been a published opinion. That may be the case. I'm not sure. But it's been a position that the Supreme Court has evidently held previously, in addition to this one that's a now published opinion. In reaction to that, the Self-Help County Coalition is asking for a legal opinion of what the running room is for public agencies, cities, and counties in the face of this. Is it an opportunity to collaborate with initiative sponsors or invite them? Is it really not as open a door as it appears? Just so the Self-Help County Coalition decided to get a better feel for this from a new interpretation of what the Supreme Court is evidently now saying. In reaction to all that, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association announced immediately that they would put together an initiative to close that loophole. In addition, the current Assembly Republican leader and several other members have introduced ACA 19 that would declare that the local electorate, for purposes of taxation initiatives, is a local government. So that would shut the door on that. So I think if the Self-Help County opinion and other opinions support the notion that the initiative would work right now as a majority vote tool, I think the window is going to be pretty well short and subject to either the constitutional amendment or the Howard Jarvis initiative next November. So that's my take on where we are on that measure or that opinion. I've got two other quick things to cover. If you'd like to wait till the end to ask questions or ask them now, I'm fine. However you want to do it, Mr. Chairman.
Go on.
Okay. There are two bills I want to bring to your attention. The first is Assemblymember Baker's shared autonomous vehicle legislation that would allow testing on public streets of the shuttle services. That bill is to the governor now. I participated in a meeting with the governor's staff when we found out that the Department of Finance was opposed. Their opposition was very weak, and I'm not sure if it wasn't more political than it was policy-oriented. But we, Ms. Baker's staff, Michael Tree from LAFTA and myself met, and we had a very good conversation. No commitment that they would revisit the finance opposition, but I felt better coming out of that meeting than I did going in, so I'm hopeful that any additional support letters to the governor to encourage his approval will probably allow that to move forward. So that's where that is. The other measure that you took an opposed position on earlier this summer was AB 1069, which sought to restructure taxi regulations, and your agency was included on a list of 10 agencies that would have been allowed to regulate taxis. I think 8 out of the 10 agencies, including yours, said, well, we don't want that gift, and we oppose the measure. The author has completely revamped the bill. He struck out all that reference. He allows a city or a county or on a volunteer basis a JPA, including a JPA or a county agency, a county transportation agency, to regulate taxes if they so wish. It's not compelling, and it's not a mandate. The catch or the other change is that it's only a city or a county or a transportation agency or a JPA in which a substantial portion of the particular taxi cab company's business is transpiring or located. So it's going to be totally elective up to the cities and counties. And as I read it, there's nothing in the bill that would, well, I guess I would put it this way. Your objections to the bill were listened to and removed in large part. So that measure is on the Senate floor, ready to move forward. And that's my report on that. And last, cap and trade has been in the deep background throughout the Capitol since the legislature went on its recess, and been lots of discussions. There was one more cap and trade auction that produced a significant amount of funding. As it stands today, the amount of funds that are in play in terms of a one-year appropriation is in excess of 1.4 and closer to $1.5 billion. There have been proposals from the Senate Pro Tem's office as well as the governor's office, and nothing has been forthcoming, although I know they're working on it, from the speaker's or leadership office of the Assembly. In essence, the Pro Tem's proposal and the governor's proposal have similar purposes for what they propose to spend the funding on. The governor's proposal is $1.5 billion. That would spend money on assisting in the implementation of the companion bill to the extension of cap and trade, which was air quality monitoring, and there's quite a bit of money, over almost $350 million, going to air districts for those purposes. The rest would go to largely low carbon transportation, with some modest amounts going to sustainable ag and other clean energy waste diversion programs, kind of a smattering. The Pro Tem's program is more focused on reducing diesel particulate through using current programs such as Carl Moyer or the current clean truck bus and off-road vehicle program and other existing programs, and feeding money into those to help accelerate the elimination of diesel emissions. So that would conclude my report.
Questions?
Yes, thank you, Mark. And maybe this is for you, maybe this is for Randy, I'm not sure. With regard to RM3, one of the things that the board of CCTA, it's not reflected in the summary you've done because it's a relatively minor point, but we also requested that funding language be put into it that included funding for regional trails, not just the Bay Trail. Has that made it into the overall portfolio of potential projects or not?
The Bay Trail is retained in RM3 bill,
Right.
but there's additional trail money that was put into another bill, SB5. And I have to admit, I didn't track that very closely. But I can get more information back
I
to
would
Lindsay.
very much, I
Yeah.
have my own interest and reasons for wanting to see
Okay.
regional trails be, capital projects for regional trails be funded.
Okay, I will
There's a bill, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'll feed that back to Lindsay later today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I really appreciate everything that your team did in Sacramento over the last 2 weeks. It made what I do a lot easier to help coordinate when they're that invested. Thank you.
Well, Julie had a lot of time. She was on vacation.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I would like to thank Mark for his instantaneous responses to all of our texts and requests and keeping us up to speed. I particularly want to thank Randy and Tim and Hisham for the heavy lift this last few weeks. It has been, I cannot tell you how big the spreadsheet is, but I know it does not fit on an 11 by 17 sheet of paper because there are about, last count, I think there are about a dozen columns that have been hidden from the spreadsheet because of different iterations of what we were trying to accomplish. And we took very seriously the direction from our board at our last meeting, and we're fighting tooth and nail. And frankly, we got some pretty negative reactions when we started our quest in Sacramento. There were a lot of folks who thought we were being absolutely outrageous. There were a lot of folks who were not real happy with us. They said you should take what you can get and be happy with that and leave us alone and, you know, consider where the money needs to go in these other areas. We stood fast. There were a lot of conversations between MTC staff who had a background role, certainly, not always a transparent role, but a very strong role in writing the language. We met with Senator Bell. He heard us loud and clear, and I have to give him a lot of credit for being willing to listen. As the author, and you can expect that his region gets a good portion of the money. Assemblymember Frazier was very insistent on keeping money in his district as well. The North Bay and the South Bay both get proportionally a little more than they put in, but we're a whole lot closer to what we put in now, and that is huge. I want to caution you, the language that is in print today is not the final deal. It reflects some of the changes, but there are significant changes to come yet in the next, 24 hours. It has to go to Ledge Council, by the end of today? So it'll go to Ledge Council over the weekend. It has to be posted no later than Tuesday so they can act on the very last day of session. But and I think, Mark, you can straighten that out. Different legislators had different opinions of the 3-day rule. Some of them said they can post simultaneously for both houses. Some said, no, they have to post for the first house, and then after that, the second house. I'm not sure. I think it's simultaneous, so they can literally walk it from one house to the other, correct?
That's correct, because it does technically meet the 72 hours. It's been in print for that full period. It'll be in print for 4
Exactly.
days.
So they can post it for both houses at the same time.
Correct.
That's what happened with SB1, which is why I figured that's the way it would be. So Tuesday is the drop dead date for everything to get finalized. We'll have a chance to see it. And I'm with Mark. I'm not 100% confident until I see it in print and posted, where it can't be changed again. But I will say I give the author and our legislators a lot of credit for trying to hear what we had to say, trying to incorporate those tenets in there as well as they could. I think there is reason to be hopeful that the Inspector General language is going to be acceptable to folks that we would not have expected to vote for this bill. And until we see it in print, we can't be sure, but I'm hopeful, and I've heard rumblings to that effect. So thank you to everybody. If we can get what we think we've worked out in this, we should be very happy when it comes to the authority.
Perseverance pays off, and you probably want to make a comment.
Well, not only that, but I just want to say staff spent about 5 days in the last 3 weeks in Sacramento. It was sort of a team trooping all the way through the state capitol, up and down the corridors, running into folks in the street, which sometimes made as much difference as the meetings behind closed doors, but it was a lot of time away from this office trying to get this wrapped up.
I just want to add, there's a lot of other agencies or associations that were actually pulling for us. So Bay Area Council, for one, we met them, the California Alliance for Jobs. They were in Sacramento walking the halls for us, so that's nice to know. But thank you to the executive committee. We used you quite a bit in this process, and I know, Chair Butt, you were in Arkansas. Chair Taylor, you were in the mountains sunning yourself and relaxing, and I'm calling to both you guys. I mean, you guys got to send me something federal. Glover, Supervisor Glover, and Mitchoff were great too, so thank you, because every step of the way, every spreadsheet change, we went to you to make sure you were okay with that, all the dollar changes. And I think at the end of the day, it's not as much as we probably should be getting, but it's better than we were, way better than we were.
On a side comment, I'm up in where I should be, 114 degrees down here, but it's hot up there. But I learned the difference between an email and a text. I'll just let that one go, but I learned the difference. All right, any other comments on this? Oh, Mark, thank you again. Head back up to the hills.
Thanks, Mark. Keep us posted.
Thank you, sir. 11-0, 2018 State Transportation Improvement Program, candidate projects.
Good morning, Commissioner. My name is Stephanie Hugh, Associate Engineer with the Authority. This is an action item for the 2018 STIP. The Authority issued a call for projects in June. In response, we got 6 applications totaling approximately $46 million in requests. The final fund estimate was approved by the CTC on August 16th. There is approximately $32 million for new programming in the 2018 STIP after taking into account of the following. $13 million to reprogram the BART station modernization project that was deleted in the 2016 STIP. $1.4 million for planning, programming, and monitoring activities for MTC and Authority staff for fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 23. $31.1 million to pay back American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or ARA funds, for the Caldecott project. And just as a little background, back in 2009, in order to expedite expenditures of ARA funds and to maintain construction schedule for the Caldecott project, MTC programmed $31.1 million in ARA funds to backfill STIP funds that were not available at that time. This $31.1 billion in 2018 STIP funds fulfills Contra Costa's commitment to pay back the ARA funds. After taking these 3 things into consideration, there is approximately $32 million in 2018 STIP for programming in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. 9 members of the TCC served on the STIP committees, shown on page 11-2. The committee met in early August to evaluate the project applications. The evaluators were split into 2 groups, and they scored all 6 applications, except for those that were submitted by their own jurisdictions. Also to note, CCTA staff did not participate in the scoring, but only facilitated the evaluation process. Attachment A is the prioritized list of the applications showing average scores and the rankings. The top-ranked project is the I-680 SR4 Interchange Improvements Phase 3, requesting $18.8 million for construction. The second-ranked project is the SR4 Operational Improvements, requesting $7.5 million for design. This project consists of multiple packages that will provide operational improvements for the SR4 corridor between 680 and Bailey Road. This requested $7.5 million for design is only for 2 small packages in the eastbound direction. These 2 top projects, totaling $26.3 million in request, can be fully funded with the expected 2018 STIP funds. The third-ranked project, City of Richmond Central Avenue at I-80 Local Improvements, also known as I-80 Central Phase 2, cannot be recommended for their full funding request of $9 million for right-of-way because of limited STIP funding. However, because City is able to modify the funding plan to cover the shortfall with other fund sources, staff recommends the project receives the remaining $5.8 million available in the 2018 STIP funds. At the August 30th meeting, TCC approved the STIP committee's recommendation of the prioritized list and to program the 2018 STIP funds to the top 3 projects. Lastly, MTC requires project sponsors to adopt a resolution of local support for projects recommended for STIP funding. Resolution 1739P, shown in your packet as Attachment B, is the resolution of local support for the authority-sponsored projects, which are the two top projects that I mentioned earlier. In summary, staff requests the approval of the staff's subcommittee's recommendation of the prioritized list and to program the available 2018 STIP funding to the top three projects. Staff also recommends your approval of 1739P resolution, which is the resolution of local support. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Second,
Move to-
and it's nice to have STIP funds to spend, finally.
Move to accept, and then, Tom, I think you saw where Richmond also has to do kind of the same,
Yeah, you need your letter too.
need your letter. I don't know if it accompanies or whatever. All right, have a first and,
Can I make a comment?
sure.
So the 18.8 million for phase 3, that's once again our money going on their project. And we're having a hard time negotiating that 58 million because I had a conversation with the director yesterday at lunch. And I think his view is half of what we need, and that we still have a hole. They're doing the cost estimate for the construction. Costs are escalating rapidly because Apple and these other big tech firms, they're building they're taking all the concrete, they're taking all electricians, and so, and this requires, I believe, an advancement, or we're going to do a 3090. Is that correct? Yeah, so we need, this is not, we're going to advance the money to, this current fiscal year, assuming that we get enough money to put the project under construction. So I just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork for that.
I would just comment, I have talked to our assemblyman about that, and I will do it again, right after this meeting.
All right. Let's see, I think I had a motion and a second, so we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. 12-0, go minimum station.
Good morning, Chair Taylor and committee members. My name is Jack Hall, and I am the CCTA's Intelligent Transportation Systems Connected and Autonomous Vehicle Program Manager. This morning, I'm going to give you an update on our Momentum Station program and our Shared Autonomous Vehicle project. We have 4 overarching goals for the Momentum Station program, and they are to create smart jobs in Contra Costa, improve mobility for everyone, enhance safety, and improve the environment. Concerning safety, we have a Vision Zero goal, no more traffic fatalities, because cars won't be able to hit each other. First, here's a quick recap of Momentum Station. It's the closed Concord Naval Weapons Station where we have a license with the City of Concord and the U.S. Navy to test autonomous vehicles. This is a large area, approximately 1/5 the size of San Francisco. This photo was taken in the area we call Bunker City, and it is where Honda and Uber Freight are currently testing. We are planning on improving the roadways in this area to include 3- and 4-lane road sections, which will provide partners with additional testing conditions. These 2 pictured 1,400-foot tunnels, which go under State Route 4, are a feature that no other proving grounds in the U.S. and likely in the world have anything to compare with. They are ideal for testing sensors, and most potential partners get very excited when they travel through them. Randy usually mentions the bridge columns in this photo are not protected by guardrail. An autonomous vehicle needs to be ready for all conditions, including cracked pavement and non-standard designs. This photo was taken in the admin or urban area and will be turned over to the county in the future. Baidu is testing in this area, and Honda is interested in doing a second demonstration here. We are working with roadside equipment vendors to install our latest traffic signal equipment for testing with autonomous vehicles. This installation will provide us with vehicle-to-infrastructure testing. This is Momentum Station's vision statement: to build a CV-AV center where convergence, innovation, and commercialization of CV applications and AV technologies take place in the largest testbed in the world. We have testing occurring today, including freight testing, and I can say that every day we get a lot closer to achieving this complete vision. Randy admits that patience is not one of his virtues and is pushing us to achieve this vision even faster than we are moving today. We feel that we are redefining mobility, and we are not going to be able to build our way out of congestion. New technology is going to improve our quality of life and allow all citizens access to efficient transportation. This slide depicts the macro environment that we are working in: influencers, challenges, applications, and technology. Our program director, Habib Shamskal, keeps an eye on the big picture as others like myself continue working on day-to-day operations and working with new partners. This slide depicts the general categories of who we work with: original equipment manufacturers, that's car manufacturers; tier 1 suppliers, part manufacturers; roadside equipment vendors; public agencies, technology and communication firms; insurance carriers; analytics; research institutes; other test beds; and professional organizations. Each group brings something to the table, and it's fascinating to see it all come together. We have a global presence in the autonomous vehicle sector. Yesterday in the morning here at CCTA, we had a group visiting from Japan, and then in the afternoon we had a group in from Taiwan. Countries like the Netherlands are bringing companies to Contra Costa to do business. This slide shows our current key partners, and this will be growing. Honda is bringing their 3rd generation car to test in the October-November timeframe. The back car is their 1st generation car, and in the front is their generation 2 car. You can see how the sensors are getting smaller. These cars are both Acuras, and then when they bring their 3rd generation car, it's going to actually be a Honda. Uber Freight is another great partner, and we see the trucking industry as one of the first adopters of autonomous vehicle technology. Thanks to Randy, we were seeking a large amount of federal funding tied to testing freight vehicles, and that's what we were talking about in the beginning of the meeting. Baidu is the Google of China, and they are ramping up testing of their Apollo autonomous driving program at Momentum. The benefits tie back to our overarching goals: improving mobility and safety, creating jobs, helping the environment, and while we are doing it, Contra Costa is gaining national and international recognition. We want to work with a STEM program for local students, and we are working to educate the public on this new technology. Momentum Station is a 501c3 with developed bylaws, and the board is currently being formed. The amount of tasks is quite large, and we have one part-time contract employee, Claire Donovan, right now. We are working with Concord for a longer-term commitment, which will help partners feel more comfortable when making longer-term commitments themselves. CCTA and Momentum executed an MOU last November, and we are planning on bringing an updated MOU to the board this November. Our most notable project is our Easy Mile Shared Autonomous Vehicle project. This project is a public-private partnership. On the left are the private partners: Stantec, Easy Mile, Best Mile. They work on the route optimization and Come Get Me application. First Transit, they're the operator, and Bishop Branch. On the right side are the public partners: CCTA, BART, Bay Area Air Quality, County Connection, SFTA, and LAVTA. We are on schedule and currently testing at Bishop Branch Phase 2. Phase 1 testing began at Momentum Station last summer. Currently, we're doing Phase 2A testing in the parking lot at Bishop Branch. Phase 2B testing at Bishop Branch will include public roads. So we're working with Leader Pelosi, who in turn is working with Secretary Chow to obtain a NHTSA waiver to run these vehicles on public streets. Phase 3 testing consists of running at least 97 vehicles around transit centers in Contra Costa. So if we didn't have a schedule, you can almost guarantee we wouldn't get the shared autonomous vehicles on the street. This has never been done before, but this is a schedule that we're planning on achieving, and that's 2020. Here are our financials and budget for Momentum Station. We are growing year over year. Years 2015 and 16 are all private funding, and then in 2017, we hope to have some of that $3.5 million, which could go back to the July 1st, and our budget runs on a calendar year. Here are some significant accomplishments at Momentum Station. Things to highlight: we've had 3 global summits, and in January we were designated as a U.S. DOT automated automated vehicle proving ground. So there's 10 of those, and that's a pretty big deal. We've gotten a lot of recognition from that. Here are some recent accomplishments. We secured $3.5 million from the state. We've signed new partners, Toyota and SAIC. They're the largest car manufacturer in China. We're very close to signing AAA, LAVTA, and County Connection. And Randy already explained he might want to add some on the THUD appropriation. Randy, are you good on that? So with that, I'm open to questions and answers.
I just want to say thank you. That's a great update. It's really, this is something we ought to put on our website. Let people, the public, know. I think this is very informative because it goes over the history as well as where we're headed. And boy, if by 2020 we can get that many of those vehicles out there, that would be extraordinary, just extraordinary. So well done.
So what's the relationship? How do these pieces fit together? You have the Go-Mountain Station, which is out at Concord, and then you've got Bishop Ranch. And how does, I don't understand how all this sort of fits together. What's the big picture?
So the history is I was asked to find a way of creating smart jobs when they redeveloped and built 10,000 homes out at Naval Weapons Station. So went out there, took a look at it, and said, this is a great place to test vehicles. So we started testing vehicles out there. And then we made it a 501(c) because we're getting, every day we get requests for information. So during that process, as we're updating our countywide transportation plan, we used technology to gather information. And we used telephone town halls, we used websites, social media. Lindsay did a fantastic job. We got more comments this cycle than the previous 25 years combined. And the fourth most prevalent issue was we can't get to the bus stop. We're too old, or we don't have a car, or we're disabled. In my case, I'm too old. I can't walk that far. Or by the time I get to the BART station, there's no parking. And so we reached out for some kind of technology that would help solve that first and last mile issue. In the meantime, Alex Marin says, hey, I've got a first and last mile issue. I'm willing to buy and pay or lease 2 of those vehicles, and they're $250,000 a piece. So he writes a check for $250 and says, I'm in.
Alex is the owner.
Alex Marin owns Bishop Ranch. Mm-hmm. So then we went out and got AB 1592 because we can't drive these vehicles because there's no steering wheel, no brake pedal, and no operator. Now we can have an operator standing in there, but there's still no steering wheel because we asked Francois Ligier, could you please put a steering wheel in there? And he said, why would I put a steering wheel in a car that drives itself? So I guess the answer is no. He said, yeah, the answer is no, we're not doing that. So we got that bill passed, and the bill specifically allowed us to continue to test driverless vehicles out at Go-Mountain Station when it leaves the military hands into the hands of Concord, the county, and East Bay Regional Park District, as well as a business park of our choosing, which we ended up choosing Bishop Ranch. It's a 600-acre business park. And so that's the relationship. Alex is not doing this to make money. He's doing this to showcase the technology.
So Go-Mountain Station is evolving from a place to an organization, right? That's what that's kind
yes.
of, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at some of I think the best example is in Ohio. It's TRC. It's been, Habib, how long has TRC been in effect?
27 years.
This place is an amazing place where vehicles have been testing for years. And surrounding that facility are these companies that support the testing. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the vision. And then one of these days, if everything works out right, it goes out on its own. And there's a tech center. There's a 4-year university of the future, however we teach our kids. There's a connection to these high schools, so we get kids excited about the STEM program. But you pull your hair out on this because it just, when one thing steps forward, you go 2 steps back.
Thank you for explaining that, because when I was reading about what's happening at Bishop Ranch, my first thought was that it's competition. But it's not competition.
No,
it's all part
it's
of the
us.
same.
It's all part of it, yeah. It's all part of it.
Thanks. Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I appreciate the report and for everything that staff has done. This vision is something that started out as kind of a twinkle in Randy's eye and, ooh, let's go see what we can do. And it has sort of evolved organically. And until we got the big grant and the designation from the feds, it really was a private endeavor. It was a nonprofit. And one of the things I would like to see when we come back in for the November budget issues and that sort of thing, I think one of the things we need to make really clear to the public is there are no public tax monies going into this from CCTA. We're not spending their Measure J monies on this. What we need to make sure that they understand is, to date, it's been privately funded and we're getting federal and state grants, but it's not coming directly out of Measure J, correct?
No, so originally, when we started this endeavor, we were authorized for $250,000 out of Measure J.
Yes.
And I believe, is that right? It was, yeah, BART category.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not coming out of their local paving funds. It's not coming out of any of that. And I think we need to be really clear about where the private investment is and what the volume of the private investment is. We need to focus on the potential for third-party businesses to come out of this and what that can be. A little more detail about the kinds of parts manufacturers we're hoping to attract to put their businesses here in Contra Costa County. We need to sell this in a way that people can see the vision for bringing industry to that part of our county particularly, and providing really good paying jobs for the folks who live here, and why this is an investment not only in jobs for our residents, but also in the ultimate technology that serves those who may not be served currently by a standard automobile. Those who are able to, or unable to get themselves around, as Randy was saying, for seniors who may be housebound, who could eventually summon a vehicle to take them to that medical appointment and leave them more independent, where they have that ability instead of having to wait on some other service or somebody to come and take them around. So I think there are a lot of benefits that we need to be able to point out to other folks. This is not just some fancy research technology that is not going to impact their daily lives. It's more like the space race and all of that research, which actually has incorporated itself into everyone's daily life. And it's something that is going to make a huge difference for future generations. And I think we need to really focus on how we sell that and show people why this is a really forward-looking agency working on this thing. Super job. Thank you.
Matt, I'm going to make a couple comments. So first, the $3.5 million match from the governor requires a match of 100%, match equally. So we have to come up with $3.5 million to get the 3.5. We have to write a report by the end of 2020, which we will do, on what we did with the dollars. And so you'll see a more robust kind of a budget with detail, because Randy Carlton is getting involved in the day-to-day kind of making sure that all this stuff is auditable and trackable and to the platinum standards that we live by. Rossmore, the CEO, contacted me the other day, and he said, wow, we would really like to demo these things in Rossmore. It's a gated community. And first question we asked was, who owns the roads? Because if the state owns the road, we still need a license to operate on public streets. Once we get that, it'll be okay. He said that he owns the roads. So we're looking for a grant there. And then Richmond's going to have a, what are they doing on that day? What is it?
It's an electric vehicle demonstration day next Wednesday.
So we've agreed to bring the vehicle out. So we're trying to do our part to get people engaged. Michael Jackson concert when we were in Sacramento. Turns out it was really hot that night, so probably better that I was in the Capitol where it was air conditioned. But Jack was there listening to Michael Jackson talking about the shared autonomous vehicle. So we are trying to get out and let people know what's happening with this technology.
Yeah, Randy, just a quick question. I mean, listening to what everybody's saying here, there's clearly potential economic benefits for the county, for the city of Concord in particular, but there are regional economic benefits from this Momentum startup. But of course, the authority was there at the birth of that startup, and I asked the question, is there a potential financial payback to the authority if this thing really gets off the ground?
Yeah, we could structure, I mean,
Is it a fair question to ask?
no, we could make money somehow on if you want to make money as we grow. Currently, we're taking all the proceeds, investing them back into the facility.
Right.
But as the facility matures and it doesn't need any more building, in theory, you've got an excess. You could actually work. It depends on how you structure that co-op.
Well, I mean, if I understand the presentation, this is a nonprofit, and so it's a question of how you structure things. But it seems to me that that's a financial opportunity that we ought not give serious thought to.
And I'm glad you said that, because when we started this, we never. This has gone a lot further than we ever.
Well, I get that. I wasn't around for the beginning of this. I'm just thinking down the road because that's all I can do.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
I have a question that's kind of off the wall, but I'll probably get a decent response from the intelligence people that sit around this table. Brentwood has around 400 acres of flatland agriculture ground that we have designated that will be no housing. It'll be plain business orientated. And we've always been very well versed in putting infrastructure, Wi-Fi, everything, so we don't have to come back years over and do it again. Is there a consulting firm other than CCTA or someone who could guide us in that way for the future, that the city could set aside some money in order to facilitate quite how we could set up this type of operation?
So Richmond recently went out with a RFP to look at making their city set up for first and last mile. So they hired a consultant, Nelson Nygaard, and then they hired Stantec as their technical advisor. I think that's how the deal was structured on the technology and the planning. So there are firms, and Stantec's in the room now, and they do this, help setting you up so that before you build all your infrastructure, the houses and the buildings, you set the transportation system, and then you build around the transportation system. You have an ideal opportunity to run from Trilogy past Somerset right into your intermodal center, and then we'll have potentially a technology runs down the median, whether it's BART or another BART-like technology. And in theory, you won't have to park. It'll be an overflow for Hillcrest. And so your city manager and I have had a conversation about that. So the answer is yes. There are consultants out there. We'd be happy to work with you on an RFP, or you can take a look at Chair Butt's RFP, because he had one out on the street, and I don't know where we are as far as the work that Nelson Nygaard is doing, but I mean, I applaud the efforts of Richmond. They're trying to get ready for the future.
All right. Any?
Commissioner, I just want to add that there is already payback for the CCTA. Without the Momentum Station program, we wouldn't have $1 million from the Bay Area district to come into the CCTA. Not all the money flow through the Momentum. Most of it, majority, it does flow through the CCTA.
Okay.
Which doesn't make my question any less relevant looking forward to the future.
That's right.
Oh, all right. No, you had some comments?
Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit, just maybe on the background, that while I understand we want to make money, that's really not the purpose. The purpose was that solving transportation is not pavement. We realize that. We don't have enough room, probably not enough money, and it was how to look at technology. What did it offer? Well, it's, as we all know, just every day on the news, there's one step closer of real things happening and making it work for the connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles. And the purpose was really to make sure that we, as a county, in our toolbox of solutions, that we were the best and we were the most robust, and we wanted to be the innovators in trying to be able to do that. realizing we can't keep going back to ask our voters to give us more money to keep doing paving because we're running out of room to do that. We can't pave our way, so to speak, out of that. That the overriding issue was how to get the spark and the genesis. The physical place is what really created that. The leadership of Randy and everybody on our team here who looked for that. But it was set up to be a nonprofit, one, so that people can make both private and public investments in that. The real payback that we'll get out of it is the surrounding entities that may come to be and that we may be able to partner with, we may be able to participate in some way. But I don't personally think our goal is to make money on it. That's we're not. That's for private industry to do.
And can I respond to that?
Well, let me finish.
Just quickly.
So the point I'm making is that I don't see the structural vehicle the way we set it up that you could legally do that in any way, because you can't take a 501c3 and transfer money out and do things, because the contribution that went in has a restriction to it for the benefit that was given. If there's a collateral offshoot of that, absolutely we should take the opportunity. But
and
just background.
I understand, but the authority has been acting here, I think, in an entrepreneurial way. It's fair to say. And when I say make money, what I'm really saying is, if that can generate additional resources that could be put to work by this authority to deal with transportation issues, not just in Concord or in Brentwood or in Richmond, but in other parts of the county that are maybe not as well served by all this, I see that as all the good. It could be Danville for all I know. So I'm not talking about going out and then creating an investment fund and becoming a venture capital firm, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the intention.
Right. We did good. Correspondence, news clippings. Commissioners, staff reports, chair comments. I have nothing. Commissioners' comments? Executive comments? Wow. Other business? Hey, we're really glad to have you back.
Thank you. May I make just a brief comment or announcement?
Well, you're
report?
back.
Okay, thank you. One thing I did want to bring to the commissioner's attention is that our new marketing and communications firm, Convey, began work in June, and so you will start to see some changes to PowerPoint templates and other materials that CCTA puts out. They've spent the summer kind of getting up to speed and getting to know our staff, and so I think over the course of the next 6 months to a year, you're really going to start to see some significant changes in our communications pieces and how CCTA presents itself. We may be coming back to you with an update in a couple of months. We're looking at embarking on our website project to make that more useful, and certainly we want to get input from the board on how that site can better serve you in the future. So I just wanted to make you aware that that's in progress, and things may start to look a little different as you see them, but they're doing a really wonderful job in supporting staff so far, and I think you're really going to start to like what you see.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll adjourn to next meeting, October 5, and boy, this year is dissipating rapidly. Anyway, thanks everyone for attending. Adjourned.